Fluent Flow podcast. New videos every day. Let's learn English together.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. We are taking a focused look today at something that, well, many of you are working on. Something that can feel challenging, but is also incredibly rewarding.
Speaking English with confidence and flow?
Exactly. Whether you're just starting out, maybe feeling a bit hesitant, or perhaps you've been learning for a while but just want to sound, more natural, this deep dive is definitely for you.
That's right. And we know that feeling of information overload. It's very real when you're trying to learn a language, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
There's just so much advice flying around. Grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation.
Right.
But when it comes down to the actual speaking part,
Right.
feeling comfortable, actually opening your mouth without that fear, that's often the biggest hurdle.
It really is, and that's exactly why we've pulled our source material for this deep dive from a very specific place. One designed to tackle this exact challenge head on.
Okay.
We're drawing insights and strategies directly from episode 4 of the Fluent Flow podcast. They did a deep dive specifically on speaking English with confidence and flow.
Good source. They usually lay things out pretty clearly.
They do. They offer a really clear, actionable path. And our mission here today is basically to unpack the most powerful nuggets from their message.
Okay.
Give you simple, practical strategies you can start using, well, today, right now, to truly improve your spoken English and build up that essential confidence.
So think of this as your guide to the core message of that specific Fluent Flow podcast episode.
Exactly.
We're going to explore the mindset stuff, the daily actions they suggest, practical ways to integrate English into your life, all based on their perspective.
Exactly. We're going deep into their ideas, pulling out those actionable steps, and hopefully helping you see how you can move from feeling, stuck or maybe scared to speaking with more freedom.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Okay, let's dive in.
Okay, so let's unpack that very first foundational idea the source material gets into. It's about the mindset of a speaker.
Right.
And it makes this really crucial point right at the start. Becoming a great English speaker, it actually begins before you even open your mouth.
Before you say a word.
Yeah, it starts inside with your internal belief, believing you can actually do it.
That feels incredibly important. It's not about a technique yet or some grammar rule. It's about what's going on in your head first.
And the Fluent Flow podcast tackles a huge barrier right away, something that, stops so many people from even trying to speak.
Okay with that.
They're very direct about what you absolutely do not need to start speaking well, or even eventually to speak great English.
Right. What's the common misconception they want to just dismantle right off the bat?
They state it super clearly. You do not need perfect grammar.
Okay.
And importantly, you do not need a native accent. The source really highlights these two things as, non-essential for communicating effectively and building that confidence.
Wow. Okay, that's almost like permission right there, isn't it?
It really is.
Because I think that's the exact mountain so many learners feel they have to climb before they're allowed to speak. This idea that every single verb tense must be perfect, every article, every sound exactly like someone on TV, that pressure is just immense.
It's paralyzing, really. And the source seems to understand that this quest for some kind of unattainable perfection, especially early on, is often the excuse we give ourselves.
The excuse not to try.
Exactly. If I tell myself, I can't speak until I'm perfect, I've basically guaranteed I'll never start the practice that actually leads to improvement.
Right. You just stay stuck studying grammar books forever.
Indefinitely.
It's wanting to be a painter but refusing to touch a brush until you can paint a masterpiece. It doesn't work like that.
Great analogy. And the source basically says, forget the masterpiece for now. Forget perfect grammar. Forget the native accent.
So if those aren't the prerequisites, what does the Fluent Flow podcast say are the essential ingredients for someone starting this journey?
They boil it down to 3 really critical components.
Okay.
Courage, consistency, and a plan.
Courage, consistency, a plan. Simple.
Yeah. They argue that having the courage just to make noise, to try, plus the consistency to keep practicing regularly.
Even small amounts.
Even small amounts, yes. And having a simple plan to guide you. Those things are far more impactful, far more necessary than getting every linguistic detail right at the start. Courage gets you started, consistency keeps you going, and the plan just gives your efforts some direction.
Courage, consistency, a plan. That totally reframes the whole effort, doesn't it?
It does.
It shifts the focus away from achieving some external, often scary standard like perfection towards cultivating internal things like bravery, persistence, and just having a structure.
It's a real shift from a passive sort of knowledge gathering approach to an active skill building one. And to really underline this, the source directly addresses that common pitfall waiting too long.
Yes, the tendency to put off the actual speaking practice.
Exactly.
You see learners, they spend years maybe studying vocabulary lists, mastering complex grammar charts, watching movies.
Consuming tons of content.
Right, but avoiding the actual production. The speaking itself.
And the source acknowledges this pattern, and then it delivers this really powerful call to action aimed right at you, the listener.
Okay, what do they say?
They say, today, that changes. You can speak English starting now, even if it's just one word, one sentence.
Today, that changes. Wow, that sentence alone feels incredibly liberating.
Doesn't it?
It's like giving yourself immediate permission. You don't need to prepare for months. You don't need a special class. You don't need to find the perfect partner first.
Nope.
You can just shift from passive learning to active doing right now, in this very moment. Even the smallest possible step counts.
It's all about lowering that activation energy, you know? The effort needed to just start. The idea of becoming fluent feels huge, maybe overwhelming. But the idea of saying one word, one sentence today, that feels manageable. And, well, behavioral science tells us starting small is absolutely key to building momentum and forming habits. The source really leverages that principle beautifully there.
And to help you kind of internalize this mindset shift, to fight back against that ingrained fear of imperfection, the source gives you an actionable mantra.
Yeah, a simple little phrase you can repeat to yourself.
What is it?
It's, I don't have to be perfect, I just have to practice.
I don't have to be perfect, I just have to practice. Say that to yourself. Just feel how that lands. It immediately lowers the stakes, doesn't it?
Completely.
It reframes the whole activity. You're not being judged on your perfection. You're sort of celebrating the effort, the act of practicing itself.
And that is such a fundamental shift. If your goal is perfection, every mistake feels like a failure.
Right.
Devastating. But if your goal is practice, then every mistake is just, well, part of the process. It's a sign that you're trying, that you're learning. So this mantra directly attacks that fear of making mistakes, which, let's be honest, is probably the single biggest obstacle for most people wanting to speak.
It really is.
If you accept you don't need to be perfect, then making a mistake isn't scary anymore. It's just feedback.
Okay, so the foundational takeaway from this part of the source is really powerful. Fix your mindset first. Let go of that myth that you need perfect grammar or a native accent before you even start.
Right.
Embrace courage instead. Commit to consistency. And know that you can start today, right now, with something tiny.
And use that mantra as your shield against fear.
I don't have to be perfect. I just have to practice.
Exactly. So that mindset clears the path, right?
Yeah.
But mindset alone isn't enough. You need action.
Of course.
And this is where the source transitions really nicely into the practical side of things, building confidence through daily speaking habits.
Right. This is where the rubber meets the road. Because knowing you can speak is one thing, but actually doing it consistently, that's another beast entirely.
True. And the core idea here, according to the source, is that fluency and confidence aren't achieved in some giant leap. They're built through small, consistent, daily action.
Little bricks building a wall.
Exactly. And they present these as simple, powerful ideas precisely because they don't require like elaborate setups or perfect conditions. These are techniques you can easily weave into your existing daily routine.
Okay.
Leveraging moments you already have.
All right, let's break down these specific techniques the Fluent Flow podcast episode recommends for daily practice. The first one is something you can literally do alone right now. No one else needed.
It's the technique of talking to yourself.
Talking to yourself.
Right.
Which sounds exactly like what it is, just speaking English when you're by yourself.
Correct. The source suggests making a habit of describing your actions or thoughts aloud in English as they happen. Just narrate your life.
And they give those wonderfully simple, relatable examples.
Yeah.
Like, I am brushing my teeth, I'm making coffee, I'm feeling tired today.
Yeah, those examples are key because they show you don't need complex philosophical ideas. Huh.
You just need to narrate your immediate reality, and you can expand this to anything you're doing. Okay, I'm walking to the store. I'm reading this article. Wow, the sky is cloudy today. Anything that pops into your head or that you're seeing or doing.
Okay, so why is this seemingly basic activity so powerful for building up your speaking ability?
Well, there are several reasons. First, and maybe most importantly for confidence, it's a completely judgment-free zone.
Right.
Totally safe space.
No one's there to correct you or misunderstand you or make you feel embarrassed, so it builds comfort just hearing your own voice speaking English. Second, it makes practice immediately available anytime, anywhere.
Sure.
You don't need to schedule it. You just do it while living your life. And third, it helps build that crucial link between your thoughts and spoken English.
Oh, okay.
You start practicing forming sentences in real time, connecting concepts in your brain directly to English words and structures without that delay of translating in your head. It literally helps you start thinking in English, even on a basic level.
So it trains your brain to output English spontaneously, based on what's going on inside or outside.
Right.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Low pressure, high availability, and it helps wire your brain for English thought-to-speech. What's the next daily habit the source recommends?
Using a speaking journal.
A speaking journal. So instead of writing down your thoughts, you speak them, maybe record them.
Exactly. The technique involves recording yourself speaking for a short, defined period each day. The source suggests just 1 minute.
1 minute. Again, that is incredibly achievable for anyone, no matter how busy they are.
Totally. And they give simple prompts to get you started too, like what did I do today or my favorite food. But honestly, the topic isn't as important as the act itself, speaking consistently and recording it. You could talk about your plans for tomorrow, a movie you watched, something interesting you learned, anything.
And what are the benefits of recording yourself like this? I imagine it might feel a bit awkward at first.
Oh, it definitely can feel strange initially, but the benefits are pretty significant. Over time, these recordings become this tangible record of your progress.
Proof.
Yeah, you can actually listen back to recordings from weeks or months earlier and hear how your fluency, your vocabulary, your pronunciation have improved. That's a massive confidence booster because it's concrete evidence of your learning journey.
That makes sense.
Also, listening to yourself helps you identify specific areas you might want to work on. Maybe you notice you stumble over a particular sound, or you keep repeating the same few words, or your sentence structure is always kind of the same.
Self-correction.
Exactly. It makes your strengths and weaknesses more visible to you. And frankly, it just helps you get used to the sound of your own voice speaking English, which is actually a key part of building comfort and confidence.
So it's about tracking progress, self-assessment, and just getting comfortable with your spoken identity in English.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, what's the third daily habit?
The shadowing technique.
Shadowing. Ah, yes, this is a technique a lot of language learners really find effective. How does the source describe doing it?
They explain it as listening to a native speaker, maybe from a podcast, video, audiobook, and immediately repeating after them, like right after they say it.
Okay.
And you're not just echoing the words, you're trying to mimic their entire vocal performance.
Like being their shadow vocally, trying to capture the sound, the rhythm, the feeling of how they speak.
Precisely. The source really emphasizes copying their tone, their rhythm, and their speed. It's less about deep comprehension of the content at first,
Right.
and more about practicing the sound and the flow of natural English. You're essentially training your mouth and your ears together.
And why is this kind of mimicry so powerful? What does it really help with?
Well, shadowing is incredibly effective for improving pronunciation, intonation, and that overall natural rhythm of English speech, sometimes called prosody.
Prosody, okay.
Native speakers, they link words together, they reduce sounds, gonna, wanna. They use stress and intonation patterns that are often quite different from how language might look written down or how it sounds spoken very slowly.
Sure.
By trying to copy these features in real time, you train your mouth muscles to make those unfamiliar movements and sounds, and you train your ears to recognize these patterns more easily. It integrates listening and speaking seamlessly.
So it helps you sound more natural.
Yes, and be more easily understood, even if your vocabulary or grammar is still developing.
It sounds like a bit of a physical workout for your mouth and your ears, actually.
It kind of is, in a good way.
Okay, what's the fourth daily habit they mention?
Reading out loud.
Reading out loud. Just taking an English text and reading it seems simple enough.
Yes, the method is basically to take some simple English text, maybe a short story, an article, even just a paragraph, and read it slowly. But the key is focusing specifically on pronunciation.
So the main goal here isn't necessarily speed or deep comprehension, but getting the sounds right. Accurate production.
Exactly. The source highlights pronunciation as the key focus for this particular exercise. Reading aloud helps bridge that gap between the written word and its spoken form, which can be really tricky in English sometimes, right?
Definitely. Spelling versus sound can be confusing.
Yeah. So this gives you controlled practice, forming the sounds, linking words together, applying stress patterns based on the visual cues of the text. It also helps build your reading fluency, which can indirectly support speaking fluency by making you more comfortable processing English text quickly.
Okay, it connects the eye to the mouth in a very focused way. And the final daily habit.
Set a speaking timer.
A speaking timer. This sounds like making sure the practice actually happens. Accountability.
It is, pretty much. The source suggests dedicating a specific short block of time each day, maybe just 2 to 5 minutes solely to speaking practice.
And the rule for this time is strict.
Right?
They say, no distractions, just you and your voice.
The power here is consistency through intentionality. We all have busy lives, right?
Yeah.
And it's so easy for speaking practice to just fall by the wayside unless you make a specific, non-negotiable appointment for it. Even just 2 minutes ensures that you actively engage your speaking muscles every single day.
And you could use that time for any of the other techniques.
Absolutely. Use the timer to talk about your day, do a quick shadowing exercise, read aloud, or record that minute for your speaking journal. It just creates a dedicated, protected space for output.
It's about carving out that small, protected block of time daily to make sure that speaking muscle gets used no matter what else is going on.
Exactly. And summing up all these daily habits, the source really emphasizes their cumulative power. They state it nicely. Small steps done daily create big progress.
Small steps done daily create big progress.
Yeah.
That's the absolute core principle behind habit formation and skill acquisition, isn't it?
It really is.
You don't need to spend hours every day. You just need to spend those minutes, but consistently. These techniques give you concrete ways to build that consistency into your day, even if it's just for a few minutes at a time. It moves English speaking from feeling like this daunting task to being a series of manageable mini actions.
And these daily habits become even more effective when you pair them with good, focused input. Which brings us neatly to the source's next major point, the essential role of listening.
Okay, so we've covered mindset and those daily practice habits. Now the source connects speaking to another crucial skill, listening. The core idea being you can't really speak well if you don't listen well first.
Right. Listening is presented as absolutely vital for improving your ability to speak.
And that makes so much sense when you think about how we learn our first language, right? We listen constantly, for years sometimes, before we start producing really complex speech.
Exactly. Listening provides the model, the blueprint, the examples of how the language is actually used by native speakers in real life, not just textbook examples.
So, how does the source break down why listening is so helpful for speaking? What specific benefits does it highlight?
Well, they explain that listening helps you learn how native speakers talk. Not just the words they use, but their speed, the way words connect and blend together, like gonna instead of going to, or wanna for want to.
Those natural reductions.
Yeah, and the rhythm, the stress patterns, the intonation, the music of the language. Listening helps you pick up common phrases and idioms that make your own English sound more natural and less like a textbook. And it helps you understand tone and flow, so you can then use those same elements when you speak to convey your meaning effectively. Whether you're asking a question, showing surprise, telling a story, the how is as important as the what.
These are those subtle but really important layers of language that go beyond basic grammar and vocabulary, aren't they?
Totally.
They're what make communication truly effective and natural sounding. And you really need to hear them a lot to be able to reproduce them yourself.
Precisely. And the source doesn't just say, listen more, which is kind of vague advice. They suggest strategies for purposeful listening, engaging with the audio in a way that directly benefits your speaking skills.
What kind of strategies do they recommend for that?
They suggest using resources like podcasts, mentioning you can listen while doing other things, like walking or relaxing.
Turning downtime into learning time.
Exactly. They also recommend watching YouTube videos, maybe starting with subtitles on if that helps your comprehension initially, and listening to simple audiobooks.
These are all really accessible ways to get exposure to authentic spoken English in different contexts, right?
Yeah.
Like a podcast gives you conversation or information.
Mm-hmm.
A YouTube video might be more visual or informal.
Right.
And an audiobook gives you narrative language. Lots of variety.
And crucially, the source introduces an active technique to pair with this listening, something that builds on those earlier ideas of practice.
Okay, what is it?
After listening to a sentence, or maybe just a short phrase, they suggest you pause the audio and then repeat what you just heard.
Ah, like an intentional echo. This sounds a bit like shadowing, but maybe done less in real time and more reflectively
Yeah.
after a pause.
Yes, exactly that. You listen to a chunk, you hit pause, and then you try to say it yourself, mimicking the sounds and the structure as closely as you can remember.
Okay.
And the source explains the power behind doing this simple action. This builds your memory and speaking ability.
That makes sense. You're immediately taking the input your ear just received and attempting to turn it into output with your mouth. It's a direct connection between comprehension and production.
Right. It helps internalize the sounds and structures much more effectively than just passive listening.
Yeah, I can see that.
They give a really simple example. You hear someone say, "Today is a sunny day." You pause it, then you repeat, "Today is a sunny day." It seems basic, but doing this consistently really trains your brain to remember and reproduce those spoken patterns.
And the source is careful to distinguish this kind of active listening and repeating from just passive study.
Yes, they make a point of highlighting this is natural learning, not just study, but practice.
Mm-hmm.
It emphasizes that while, sure, studying grammar rules about sentences is useful, actually hearing and then repeating those sentences is a different kind of learning. It's more active, and ultimately, it's a more natural way to build the actual physical and cognitive skills needed for speaking. It's learning by doing based on authentic models.
So the key takeaway for this section is that listening isn't just some separate skill floating off on its own. It's actually an engine for your speaking.
Well put.
Listen actively. Listen purposefully, using various resources. And crucially, make time to pause and repeat what you hear. Turn that input into immediate output practice. Your ears are your best friends for improving your mouth.
Absolutely. And taking this idea of active use even further, the source moves into is maybe the most effective strategy of all,
Which is,
integrating English into your life.
okay, this feels like the ultimate goal, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Moving English out of the study zone and making it part of the actual fabric of your daily existence.
Yes. The core idea here is that the most powerful, most effective way to learn is by actually using English in real, everyday situations.
Moving from learning English as like an academic subject to using English as a functional tool to just navigate the world around you.
Exactly. When English is part of your real life, it becomes more relevant, it becomes more memorable, and the opportunities for practice are suddenly endless and, importantly, natural. They just pop up.
Okay, this sounds incredibly effective in theory, but how do you actually do that? How do you make that integration happen? Does the source give practical methods?
They do. Several very practical, quite simple methods, actually. One simple but highly effective suggestion is to change your device language.
You mean change your phone settings, computer settings to English?
Yep. And the language of your most frequently used apps, too. This provides constant, unavoidable exposure to functional English vocabulary that's directly related to your daily actions.
That's really clever, because you're not sitting down opening a dictionary. You're learning words like settings, send, cancel, delete, save, edit,
Exactly.
just by interacting with your technology like you normally would.
And those words become deeply ingrained because you encounter them repeatedly in a meaningful context. You actually need to understand them to use your device. It's low stakes, but high frequency exposure to practical English that relates directly to your life.
Turns a routine action into a constant mini learning opportunity. That's fantastic. Okay, what's another method they suggest for integration?
Joining online English groups.
Online groups, like on Facebook or WhatsApp, Telegram, those kinds of platforms.
Yeah, the source mentions those specifically. And the key benefit they highlight is finding other people who are also learning English.
Right, so creating a community of fellow travelers on the same path. How does interacting in those groups help specifically with speaking confident?
Well, the source suggests practicing with short messages or, interestingly, voice notes.
Voice notes, okay.
This provides a pretty low-pressure environment for interaction. You can take your time composing a text message if you want, or you can record a short voice message and re-record it if you need to before sending.
Right. Takes the pressure off immediate response.
Exactly. It builds confidence in expressing yourself, maybe first in writing and then gradually with spoken messages, but still within a social context. It's a good stepping stone towards real-time conversation without all the immediate demands of face-to-face talk. You're using English to connect with people, which makes it feel more social and less like study.
Makes English a tool for connection.
Nice. And speaking of connecting, the next method they mention is speaking with a language partner.
Yes, a classic technique. But the source makes a really important point here. You don't always need a formal, maybe paid teacher. A friend who is also learning English can be a perfect language partner. That's really encouraging. It removes that barrier of cost or maybe feeling intimidated by a teacher. You can just learn together.
Precisely. A peer-to-peer relationship can feel much less intimidating. You're both learning, you both make mistakes, you can support each other. It turns practice into a shared activity, not a test.
And what kind of conversations should you have? Does it need to be like formal grammar practice?
Not at all. The source emphasizes simple, everyday conversation topics. They give examples like, how was your day? Or what did you eat today?
Just normal stuff.
Yeah, it's about using English to talk about your actual life, just like you would with any friend in your native language.
So it's practice in authentic, low-stakes interaction about familiar things. Helps you get comfortable forming spontaneous sentences and responding in real time.
Exactly. And that shared goal means you're both likely motivated to practice and probably more patient with each other's learning process.
Okay, good point. What's the fourth way the source suggests integrating English?
Using social media in English.
Okay, how would someone do that effectively for language learning, beyond just passively scrolling?
Well, the source suggests actively following English-speaking accounts that genuinely interest you, whether that's related to news, hobbies, entertainment, whatever.
Right.
But then the key is to actively engage. Try commenting on posts in English, or even jumping into conversations that are happening in the comments sections.
So it exposes you to authentic, often quite informal, everyday English used by native speakers. And it gives you opportunities for low-stakes written practice. You're using English for genuine communication about topics you actually care about.
Exactly. It makes it feel less like a chore and more like a natural way to engage with content and people online. It turns your scrolling time into potential learning time.
You're seeing how English is used naturally in real interactions and practicing your own production in a semi-public but usually pretty low-pressure environment. Okay. And finally, the fifth integration method, it builds on that talking to yourself idea.
It does. It's called practice while doing life.
Practice while doing life.
This is about consciously weaving English into your routine activities by thinking or speaking simple English phrases related to whatever you're doing or observing at that moment.
And the source gives examples like being at the store and thinking or saying, okay, what am I buying? Or when you're cooking, saying, right, I'm chopping vegetables now.
Exactly. It's about turning those ordinary, even mundane moments into active English practice opportunities. It constantly reinforces vocabulary related to your personal environment and activities. You're essentially labeling the world around you in English as you move through it.
The water's boiling. Where are my keys? Oh, it's starting to rain outside. Things like that.
Perfect examples. It makes English a continuous internal dialogue or maybe an external narration of your immediate reality.
So you're constantly looking for these tiny little moments throughout the day to connect English directly to your personal experience. It sounds like it makes the language feel much more alive and personal somehow.
It really does. And the source concludes this whole section on integration with a really powerful statement that sums up this entire approach perfectly. They say, speaking is not just an activity, it's a way of life.
A way of life.
Yeah.
Wow, that reframes everything, doesn't it? English isn't just something you study over here or practice for a set period over there.
Right.
It's woven into your daily habits, your interactions, your thinking, your environment. It becomes part of the lens through which you experience parts of your day.
And when speaking becomes a way of life, consistency isn't something you have to force so much. It becomes a natural consequence of just living. You're constantly engaging with the language in relevant ways, which naturally accelerates your learning and builds that comfort.
So integrating English means deliberately making it a part of your everyday world. Change your phone language, connect with other learners online, find a practice buddy, use social media in English, and narrate your own life as you live it. These are all ways to stop thinking of English speaking as this separate task you have to do and start seeing it as just a tool for living.
That's it, exactly. And of course, as you start implementing these integration strategies and daily habits, you will encounter challenges, you will make mistakes. It's inevitable.
Right.
Which is why the source then moves on to address some common pitfalls, things to watch out for.
Okay, yeah, recognizing the traps is definitely half the battle. What are the common mistakes that the source says learners should be aware of and really try to avoid?
The source highlights 3 key pitfalls that can easily derail your progress and knock your confidence. The first one links directly back to that initial mindset discussion we had.
Okay.
It's don't wait until you're perfect.
The paralysis we talked about right at the beginning.
Yeah.
Believing you need to be totally error-free before you even dare to speak.
Precisely. The source reinforces that this is just a detrimental waiting game. If you postpone speaking practice until you feel, enough grammar, enough vocabulary, well, that day will likely never actually arrive.
Because the real mastery comes through the speaking.
Exactly. You need to use the language actively to learn how to use it effectively and spontaneously in real situations. Waiting just keeps you in this perpetual state of preparation without ever actually entering the arena.
It's like that musician who only studies music theory but never actually plays their instrument.
Right.
Or an athlete who only studies strategy diagrams but never practices on the field. The skill is fundamentally in the doing.
Perfect analogy. Okay, the second common mistake the source warns against is don't be afraid of mistakes.
Right. This is possibly the biggest fear for so many language learners, isn't it? That fear of sounding silly or being misunderstood or just being judged.
It's huge. And the source directly confronts this fear with a really powerful reframe. They state very clearly that mistakes help you learn.
Mistakes help you learn. Okay.
This is fundamental. If you can view a mistake not as a failure, but as valuable feedback, it changes everything.
How so?
Well, each mistake you make when you're speaking actually tells you something important. Maybe you used the wrong word, maybe your pronunciation wasn't quite clear enough, maybe your sentence structure was a bit confusing. These aren't proof that you're bad at English.
They're signposts.
Exactly. They are signposts showing you precisely what you might need to work on next. They guide your future learning.
So mistakes aren't endpoints. They're actually learning opportunities that point the way forward.
Yes, and embracing that perspective really reduces the emotional weight of making errors. It makes you more willing to experiment, to try out new phrases, to speak more often, because the cost of making a mistake is low. It just provides data for future learning. It helps build resilience and that crucial growth mindset.
Okay, that's a really helpful way to think about it. What's the third pitfall the source says to avoid?
It's don't only study, practice speaking too.
This loops back to the importance of active output, right? Connecting back to integrating English into your life and building those daily habits we talked about.
Right. It's a necessary reminder that while studying grammar rules, expanding vocabulary lists, and listening extensively are all crucial inputs, they are absolutely not substitutes for the actual act of speaking. Speaking is a distinct skill. It requires its own dedicated practice. You might know intellectually how to form a sentence grammatically, but retrieving that knowledge and producing the sounds spontaneously in the flow of a conversation, that requires specific speaking practice.
It's about putting the knowledge into action, turning that passive understanding into active ability. Like study provides the ingredients, but speaking is the actual act of cooking and serving the meal. You need both.
Love that analogy. And the source really drives home the overarching message of this whole section, how to overcome these pitfalls, with a simple yet profound statement about how confidence is actually built, as they say. Confidence comes from doing.
Confidence comes from doing, not from having all the answers beforehand, not from achieving perfection first, but from the simple act of trying, practicing, taking action.
Yes. When you consistently take action, even small, imperfect actions, like talking to yourself for just 1 minute, or shadowing one sentence, or sending that short voice note, you prove to yourself again and again that you can do it.
Right.
You build up this history of successful attempts, no matter how tiny they seem. And this lived experience of doing something and achieving those small wins, that's what builds genuine self-assurance far more effectively than just passively accumulating knowledge ever could.
And the mistakes are part of that doing.
Absolutely. Mistakes are part of the doing, and learning from them is part of the process that strengthens both your skill and your confidence over time.
Okay, so the key pitfalls are the trap of waiting for perfection, the fear of making mistakes, instead of seeing them as valuable learning tools, and neglecting active speaking practice in favor of only passive study. And the powerful solution to counter all of them is embodied in that simple phrase: confidence comes from doing. So just start doing, even imperfectly.
That's the core message. Now, putting all these pieces together, the mindset shift, the daily habits, the role of listening, the integration into life, avoiding the pitfalls, how do you actually structure all this? How do you make it happen consistently?
Right, because consistency is easy to say, harder to do sometimes.
Exactly, which is why the source provides a simple framework to help.
A plan. We're back to the third ingredient: courage, consistency, and a plan.
We are indeed. This final section in the source offers a practical blueprint, what they call a simple weekly plan, to help you put all these strategies into action consistently.
Okay, a structure. The core idea here is that consistency is just easier to maintain when you have a simple structure to follow, right?
Definitely. It removes that daily guesswork of, okay, what speaking practice should I do today? And it ensures you're engaging regularly, incorporating those different techniques we've discussed.
It sounds like a simple, repeatable routine designed to build that crucial daily habit of speaking.
Yeah.
What does this weekly plan actually look like, according to the Fluent Flow podcast?
They structure it across the week with sort of daily components for Monday to Friday, and then slightly different activities suggested for the weekend.
Okay, let's look at the weekday routine first. Monday to Friday.
All right. For Monday through Friday, the plan suggests short, focused mini practice sessions, designed to be really easily slotted into a busy day.
And how short are we talking? The source really emphasized small steps earlier.
They stick to that principle. These are indeed small steps, adding up to a very manageable daily commitment. The suggested plan includes,
Okay.
first, 2 minutes where you speak out loud about your day. This directly incorporates that talking to yourself technique we discussed, just narrating your immediate experience.
Right, 2 minutes.
Then 3 minutes where you shadow a podcast or video. This brings in the shadowing technique and leverages that purposeful listening idea.
Okay, 3 minutes is shadowing.
And finally, 2 minutes where you either speak with a friend if you have a language partner, or you record yourself using that speaking journal concept.
Got it. 2 minutes of interaction or recording. So let me add that up. 2 plus 3 plus 2. That's a total of just 7 minutes of dedicated speaking practice each weekday.
That's it, 7 minutes.
That is incredibly accessible. Seriously, anyone could find 7 minutes. You could do 2 minutes while getting ready in the morning, 3 minutes during a commute or a coffee break, and 2 minutes in the evening.
Exactly. It neatly bundles multiple effective techniques into a really short, manageable daily routine.
The power isn't in the length of each session, it's in the daily repetition.
That's the idea. These short bursts help build the habit without feeling overwhelming, and they ensure you activate your speaking muscles every single day.
Okay, that covers the weekdays. What about the weekend? Saturday has a different focus, you said.
Yes, Saturday is suggested for a slightly longer, maybe more integrated practice session. The plan for Saturday is basically, first, watch an English video. Could be short, something you enjoy. Then write maybe a few notes about it, and then speak about it for 3 minutes.
Okay. So this combines listening comprehension from the video with production, both written notes maybe, and then spoken output.
Right. You consume some content, then you process it and articulate your thoughts, or maybe just summarize it in English.
So it encourages you to move from understanding input to actually generating output based on that specific input.
Watching the video provides the topic and some language models, and then writing, even briefly, can help organize your thoughts before you do the 3 minutes of speaking practice. It's a slightly more structured and integrated practice than the quick daily habits.
Makes sense. And Sunday. The plan includes Sunday too.
Yes, Sunday is dedicated to review and reflection. This is a crucial but often overlooked part of the learning process.
What does that involve?
The plan suggests you review your week of practice. Ask yourself the question, what did I learn this week? And importantly, celebrate your progress.
I love that. Taking a moment to pause, look back at the week's practice, those daily 7 minutes, the Saturday session, and consciously acknowledge what you've learned or achieved.
Absolutely. Reflection really helps solidify learning, and it makes your progress visible, even to yourself, because sometimes it feels small day to day, right?
Totally.
But looking back over a whole week can often show you how far you've actually come. Asking, what did I learn, prompts you to actively recall new vocabulary, maybe a phrase you used successfully, or some insight you gain about your own speaking patterns.
And the celebration part.
That's vital for motivation. Celebrating your progress, whether it's just hitting your 7-minute daily goal consistently, or successfully using a new phrase you learned, or feeling slightly more confident, it reinforces the positive habit. It keeps the learning journey feeling rewarding, not like a chore.
It's a moment to appreciate the consistency and the courage you applied throughout the week, however big or small those steps felt.
And the source wraps up this section on the weekly plan with a simple phrase that kind of encapsulates the entire journey they're advocating.
Which is,
this is how you grow, step by step, day by day.
step by step, day by day. It really reinforces that core idea that fluency isn't some magical overnight transformation.
Yeah.
It's a process built through consistent, manageable effort over time. This simple weekly plan provides a clear, actionable structure to make that consistency achievable.
Right. Turning those small daily steps into significant progress eventually, it gives you a concrete roadmap for implementing all the strategies we've talked about.
The mindset, the daily habits, the listening, the integration.
Exactly. Ensuring that consistent speaking practice becomes a regular, non-negotiable part of your life.
Wow, we have covered a lot in this deep dive, digging into the Fluent Flow podcast episode on speaking with confidence and flow.
We really have.
We've explored that crucial mindset shift, moving away from needing perfection. We've unpacked those simple but powerful daily habits like talking to yourself, shadowing.
The speaking journal, reading aloud, the timer.
Right. We understood the essential role of listening as the input fuel for speaking. We discovered practical ways to integrate English into your real life using your phone, social media, finding partners.
Making it a way of life.
Exactly. We identified those common pitfalls, like the fear of mistakes and why avoiding them is key. And finally, we laid out that simple weekly plan to structure consistent practice.
And the unifying thread, I think, throughout all these points from the source is really clear, isn't it?
What would you say it is?
That building confidence and fluency in speaking English is absolutely achievable. It just takes consistent, intentional practice. Starting small, reframing your relationship with mistakes, and weaving English into your everyday life.
It's not about being flawless from day one. Not at all. It's about having the courage to begin, the consistency to keep practicing those small steps,
Day by day.
and the willingness to learn from the inevitable mistakes along the way.
Right. And remembering that purposeful listening provides those necessary models, and integrating English into your real life provides that relevant practice ground.
Well, that brings us towards the end of this deep dive. We've really tried to extract the core strategies from this source material to give you a comprehensive, but hopefully simple path forward, a way to improve your English-speaking confidence and flow.
Yeah, we hope that breaking down these ideas from the Fluent Flow podcast has not only clarified the process for you, but maybe also made the goal feel much more accessible, less intimidating.
Definitely. Before we finish up, let's leave you with just a couple of final thoughts to maybe mull over. Building on those powerful ideas from the source that speaking is a way of life and that you just need to start small today.
Okay. So thinking about English speaking as truly a way of life, not just a scheduled activity, what is one single tiny moment in your day, maybe today, maybe right now, where you could speak just one English word or one simple English sentence?
Could be anything. Maybe just describing the color of your coffee mug or saying, "I'm ready" out loud when you leave the house. Just find one small moment.
And the second thought, considering that the source emphasizes that mistakes actually help you learn, what is the smallest possible mistake you could maybe intentionally try to make today, just to practice being okay with it?
Ooh, interesting. Like maybe mispronounce one word you're unsure of on purpose just to see what happens. Notice it doesn't break anything, and then maybe try it again correctly.
Yeah, just taking the fear out of imperfection. So reflect on those questions. How can you make English speaking a tiny, perhaps imperfect but consistent part of your life starting today?
The tools are simple, they're accessible, and really they're in your hands.
It truly is just about taking that first tiny step, isn't it? And then building from there,
Step by step.
day by day. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Keep practicing with courage, keep learning from all your attempts, and keep speaking your way towards confidence and flow.
Thank you for watching. See you in the next episode.